So as the fires raged through LA, certain political leaders nowhere near LA quickly got to work fanning the flames politically. Now, I am not saying that some of the criticism was without merit, like the progressive LA mayor being out of the country on some random vanity trip despite weather forecasts predicting, quote, extreme danger. She should be skewered for that, and we'll get to that. But spreading false accusations about why there's a shortage of water to fight the fires, who does that help? Who? How does that make things better? So let's separate truth from fiction on the political front when it comes to the rumors and accusations that have been swirling. Because just because California is an easy political target due to its very progressive policies, many of which I've criticized, doesn't mean it should be baselessly attacked and become a political punching bag when lives are at stake and while first responders are on the ground right now performing heroic acts. So let's start with some facts. Number one, did California Governor Gavin Newsom not sign a water declaration as President-elect Trump claims? No. Trump, posting to Truth Social and using a derogatory nickname for Newsom, claimed the governor refused to sign the, quote, water restoration declaration that would have allowed millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snow melt from the north to flow daily into Southern California. Trump saying Newsom didn't sign this document, which isn't clear exists, to, quote, protect a fish called a smelt. Newsom's office responding, saying there's no such document as the Water Restoration Declaration. It's pure fiction. And when asked, Trump's team points to a 2020 memo he signed to direct more water to Central and Southern California, which California then sued to block. And yes, the smelt was one of the species cited in the lawsuit. So, leaves us with a question. Did the environmental concerns prevent firefighters from having enough water? The answer is almost certainly no, and here's why. The dispute during the first Trump administration was over water that gets funneled down essentially from Northern California rivers and snowmelt, not LA. Most of LA's water comes from east of the Sierra Nevada and the Colorado River. And in any case, there was no shortage of water, at least initially, since their reservoirs and their tanks were full. Now, you're going to say to me, but what about the fact that the hydrants ran out of water? Okay, we'll get to that. The issue seems, for now, to be more about infrastructure. Firefighters couldn't take to the skies to dump water on the flames from above because of the winds. So they were relying only on hydrants on the ground, and the demand was so high that the water in the city's reserves was quickly depleted. The high demand created problems with the kind of water pressure needed to move water around, especially to hillier areas. Now, that raises questions about the existing utility system in place to fight wildfires, but it isn't related to smelt. Next was the legitimate criticism. The Democratic mayor of LA was out of town until last night, despite the warnings. Not just out of town, but Mayor Bass was halfway around the world as part of a Biden administration delegation sent to the inauguration of the president of Ghana. She had to be at a ceremony in Ghana? Initially, she didn't even consider it worthy of a response when she was questioned by a reporter at the airport on her way back.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
Can you back up? Appreciate it.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
I can understand her not answering the question about Elon Musk, saying she's incompetent, but the rest of it were legitimate questions. She eventually did respond at a press conference on the fires, the first she was able to attend in person.
In terms of my flight home, I was on a military flight, as I mentioned, which allowed me to be in constant communication. I was on the phone, on the plane, almost every hour of the flight. So although I was not physically here, I was in contact with many of the individuals that are standing here throughout the entire time. When my flight landed, immediately went to the fire zone.
What? Look, she left Congress, where you do go on those sort of occasional ceremonial jaunts. She left Congress to become mayor of LA, which has never needed leadership on the ground more than now, including, by the way, warning residents of extreme fire weather danger, warnings which the National Weather Service began putting out last week. Her office didn't send out a news release about the fire risk until after the Pacific Palisades was already raging. Many residents telling the New York Times they had zero warning from city officials, and it's clear from the lack of preparation that authorities were caught off guard.
What explains this lack of preparation and rapid response?
Let me just say, first and foremost, my number one focus, and I think the focus of all of us here with one voice, is that we have to protect lives, we have to save lives, and we have to save homes. Rest assured that when rest assured, let me finish. Rest assured, when that is done, when we are safe, when lives have been saved and homes have been saved, we will absolutely do an evaluation to look at what worked, what didn't work, and to correct or to hold accountable any body, department, individual, etc. But my focus right now is on the lives and on the homes.
All right, but the question will be whether she's also going to look at how she dealt with this herself. Look, it's also true that the mayor cut the fire department's budget by nearly $18 million. And it's true that her fire chief warned her of the dangers of doing so at the time, particularly because the cuts would affect programs like disaster response and critical incident planning, which develops plans for major emergencies. But. Does any of that mean this major disaster would have been avoided? Some earlier, firmer warning, sure, that could have helped a bit. More money for the fire department would have helped too. But no, based on the weather and the winds, the answer is it could not have been avoided. This still would have been an epic disaster. That doesn't mean the criticism isn't fair. It doesn't mean that things could have been better. But then there are some on the right who are blaming LA's fire chief and the issue of diversity.
There was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California, and the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters.
So while her department was sending equipment to Ukraine, the chief was marching in pride parades, which is fine. Have all the pride you want, but you better make sure you're ready to do your job when it counts.
It turns out that in recent years, LA's fire chief has made not filling the fire hydrants top priority, but diversity. Diversity is at least among the top priorities for the department. Who gives a shit if the fire chief is gay? I'm sorry, but who gives a flying fig about who she likes to sleep with? Can you fight the fires, madam?
Okay, but where's the evidence that the fire chief made the department less prepared to handle the fires on a massive scale such as this? So here's my big picture point. Let's stop using this as an opportunity to win political points without facts to prove that it would have, even might have, made a real difference in the outcome. Which brings me back to my point. Even though some of the political finger pointing may be accurate, and some of it is going to be stuff that needs to be answered, It doesn't help now and would not have stopped the disaster from happening. Mayor Bass should be pressed. Maybe she should be voted out. But spreading fiction like the governor blocked the water from getting to LA or DEI made this fire department less ready to respond. It's not only there's no proof of it, it just borders on being dangerous. We owe it to the first responders. We owe it to the fire department and the people who are risking their lives and the people who lost their homes, their livelihoods, even their lives, not to use this tragedy for cheap politics. Continuing to watch this enormous expansion of this fire in Calabasas, Florida. It's gone from 50 acres to 1,000 acres in 2 hours.